Don't move. Turn your fantasy football into reality. Here's CeJaay.
Welcome back to the University of Fantasy Football Part 3 of our series, which is the perfect time of year to be talking about this next subject here. This subject is about quarterbacks and the importance of quarterbacks to your championship game roster. Now, I'm in all kinds of drafts. I've helped people with drafts. I get all kinds of comments. We talk about this at work. We talk about in the chat groups and so forth. But here's the prevailing thought on quarterbacks, and it's wrong. The thought is that don't draft a quarterback early because the difference between a top quarterback and a mid-level quarterback isn't as significant as it is with a running back or a wide receiver. And fair enough, that's very true. But that's where the mistake you're making is if you're going to win your championship. The mistake is one touchdown. Now, what I mean by that is this. If you've got Jacobs at running back, I've got an Eckler or someone similar. If you've got a Gerald Wilson, I've got a Waddle. If you've got Andrews, I've got Kittle. The difference is nothing. But when you get to the quarterback and you've got, don't know who, I'm not going to pick on anyone. Let's just say that it's not Patrick Mahomes and it's not Josh Allen, and I do. My advantage is in that game that week against you, not in the total points scored between the quarterback and the wide receiver by the end of the year or whatever. And you got to be able to do some math with this too, because if you're in a 14-team league, single quarterback, everybody gets 2 quarterbacks. There's only 32. So 2 times 14 is 28. You might be one of the ones that has 3, but your third guy's likely not to be that good unless you draft early. See, I'm never going to be the guy that has the bad quarterback at the end of the year. And I'm never going to be the guy that's searching the waiver wire desperately trying to make a trade to get a quarterback late in the year. That's not me. I mean, I've got 9 teams right now. Some of them are rebuilding teams, whatever, but I've got 9 teams this year. I expect to win 3 championships, but this is just the starting quarterback for each one of those teams. Now, some of these are 2 and 3 quarterback leagues, but that's another story, 3 quarterbacks. I've got Mahomes, Carr, Goff, Fields, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, and Rodgers as my starting quarterback for each of those teams. Doesn't matter if it's a rebuild or not. I've got a good quarterback. And on a rebuild, if I've got a good quarterback like a Rodgers and someone wants to win a championship late in the year, they can pay for him and maybe I can get a younger quarterback, a better draft pick, and maybe get a step further in my rebuild. But when you're doing the math, a 14-team, 1 quarterback league is almost like a 10-team superflex in how many quarterbacks you need to have to get through a season because there's bye weeks. And incidentally, what do you do if you have 2 quarterbacks and they both have the same bye week? Yeah, that happens to me and a friend of mine too. So that's a whole different subject. But the thing is, if you're in a 10-team league, there's 32 quarterbacks. If you're in an 8-team league, there's 32 quarterbacks. If you're in a 12th, you get it. There's 32 quarterbacks, right? And how many of them are worth having? Doesn't matter if it's a startup, a dynasty, a keeper, a vampire league, whatever the deal is, okay? If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to win. And yeah, the difference isn't that huge, but it's a touchdown. The good quarterbacks get 3 touchdowns. The ones that aren't get 2, and some just get 1. I want the guy that has 3, but the guy that could have 5. That's what I want, because that's how I'm going to beat you. You've got Jacobs, I've got Eckler. That whole scenario again. So do the math on quarterbacks, find out how many you need, and get them early because you are not going to get them late. Oh, and one more thing. I almost forgot. Not exactly viewer mail here, but a little bit of pushback on the episode I did recently about writing everything down, having books and a pen and paper and all that kind of stuff and doing it old school instead of just scrolling through your app, which to me, you don't retain as much and you miss things. And so I like to write everything down. So I got a little bit of pushback on that. But to justify my old school thought process and how to put together a championship team and stay involved with your team about writing everything down, slide on over to Netflix. There's a documentary on Mahomes, Mariota, and Kirk Cousins. It's called The Quarterbacks. And you're going to notice something when you're watching that show. All of them sit down, pen, paper, write it out and write it out and write it out because they have to know it perfectly. And I'm not saying that, yeah, I got to write it right, but what I'm saying is write it down. Do that often. Stay involved. If you want to win, get serious about it. If you're just for fun, that's fine too. But writing it down means championship. Hope you get your notepad. I got mine still. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. University of Fantasy Football Part 3. Next show, a surprise for you.